Hi friends, Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. So, week 7. That's right, we've made it to week 7 of the Skulliver Sew Along. So, if you don't know what a Skulliver is, this is a Skulliver. Isn't he adorable? The quilt will look a lot better than the picture. I'm telling you. Anyways, if you would like to find yourself a kit on Legit Kits, the link is right up here. Legit Kits makes Skulliver and plenty other awesome, I think they're like 3D, almost real life type quilts patterns. It's a paper piecing pattern, and they make so many different options. I'm telling you, they are super awesome. I would love to do more, but obviously you can only do one at a time. Well, you can probably do more, but I can only do one at a time. Anyways, I'm just going to start out by saying today we are going to do pages 41 through 46. So pages 41 through 46. Last week I did the 10-page thing and I was like kind of overwhelmed with the amount of fabric I needed for 10 pages. So this week I decided to go back to 6 pages to make it easier. So pages 41 through 46, back to the 6 pages. So that way I don't have to pull as many colors. Maybe I'll do the 10 thing again, but I definitely did too much for week 6. So anyways, I've already pulled all my colors I needed, so all I need to do is cut out my colors for my pages. A few of these pages have more than one piece on the page, so let's get into cutting everything out, and I'm pretty sure you know how to do that, but I'll put you in time lapse while I do. Okay, it's time to sew some blocks. Okay, so we are going to, I don't even know what number or page they are anymore. I'm going to assume that this is like page 46 or something. I have no idea. They're just stacked here. So we're just going to get sewing on, how about D3A? And we're going to start by folding our lines. So we're going to fold our lines, make them nice and crisp, making it easier to do things, I suppose. Let's see if I can remember this whole entire video to fold first. Because week 1 through 6, you know, I struggled with remembering to fold first. But we're going to fold first and see if I can remember this. All right, come on. Here we go. All right, so D3A is what we're doing at this very moment. And we're going to grab HG, and that would be, well, it's Hunter, no, AG. AG is first. Age is champagne. So that's this color right here. We're going to see which way I cut it. It looks to be this way. I'm going to move my pieces into the throat space because that's easier for me. We're going to bring this light up here. And we're going to lay our piece on top of there, making sure that it is where I want it. Everything is covered all the way. Right there. And I'm going to put a pin in it. Or two. All right, so let's put a pin right here. Is it in the fabric? Oh, it is. Look at that. And I'm going to put a pin in the opposite way since I have so much trouble always with these pieces. There we go. So I'm going to fold that on that line. Everything's where I want it. I'm going to create that wonderful seam allowance. Okay, it didn't shift. It looked like it moved because it was kind of over some. All right, so we're going to just add a quarter ruler on there. Make a cut. And I switched to a different rotary cutter today, and well, so far I'm not happy. All right, let's move that. And we're going to find a U, which is gold. So that would be this one. And I can tell right away it's going to go this way. So I'm going to go ahead, and these are the sides that I'm sewing on. I'm going to flip it over to this side, and I'm going to line this up with my nicely cut line. Come up right about there. And we're going to hold it in place and sew it on there between 1 and 2. Well, it would be wonderful if my machine would sew. Why is my machine not sewing? Oh, because the cord got knocked out for the foot pedal. Yeah, today's going to be a day. Let's start that over. I had a thread tangle right off the bat from my bobbin, which knocked my top thread off. Okay, now that I've fixed that, let's line this back up again, flip it over, and sew it. I am using a 1.5 stitch length. All right, let's make sure it covers it. And it does. So before I do anything, let's get rid of that seam allowance. Okay, I definitely have a nick in this blade. Time for a different one. All right, remove the pins. I'm just going to lay them on the pin thing. We're going to go ahead and roll this back. We're going to grab our roller. I'm spreading it open with my fingers. If I see my seam or my stitches, that's not a good sign. So you don't want to see your stitches when you do that. All right, roll it back just like that. And now we're going to go ahead and fold on the between 1 and 3 line right here. And we're going to make that nice and straight. And we're going to go ahead and grab HG, which is Hunter Green. So that is this piece right here. And it looks like I cut it like this. So I'm going to grab this side right here and flip it over and lay it on here. Just like that. We're going to hold it, flip it, sew it. All right. We're going to make sure it covers it, and it does plenty. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that excess seam allowance right here. Just a sliver. We're going to go ahead and roll it back. Just going to hold it open and roll. And as you can see, I'm also, because my little cutting mat is getting little slivers on it, it's getting on the fabric a little bit. So I just have to shoo it off, and it ends up in the seams too. All right, now we're going to fold between 3 and 4. So we're just going to pull away this stitching right there, fold between 3 and 4, and we're going to make ourselves a 1/4 inch seam. Again, it's just a sliver. All right, piece 4 is HO, which is chocolate. And that would be this darker one. And this is the side I'm sewing on. So I'm just going to flip it over, lay it on here. We're going to make sure that that's going to cover. And it does. Right there. Yep, that's where we want it. Throw that out of the way. Hold the piece. Sew it. I don't really need to trim it. It's pretty 1/4 inchy to me. And that's literally right there on the edge of my gray seam allowance. So I'm just going to roll it back. Now we're going to fold between 4 and 5. I'm just going to pull the stitching away, right, or the paper away from the stitching. All right, between 4 and 5. Go ahead and cut that. And I'm also, because it's such a close call, I'm actually going to stitch within the seam allowance real quick on this piece, just to hold that brown down. All right, so between 4 and 5 is our last piece, which is UP, and it looks like it's going to go like this. So I'm just going to hold that. That's the side I'm sewing on. I'm going to roll it back and make sure that it covers it. It does. So I'm just going to lay this on here, just like this. Flip it over and sew it. All right. And it's covering the whole piece, so all I need to do is trim away the seam allowance. And we're going to roll this back with our roller. All right, and there we have D3A, which I'm pretty sure this was page 46. All right, so that's complete. Let's move on to, I'm pretty sure this came from the same page 46, but this is D3B. This is just a couple little pieces, so we're going to go with T is in spot 1. Let's see which way I cut that. Obviously, it's bigger than it needs to be, so I'm going to go ahead and just lay it on here. And look, I did it already. Let's fold on our line. See? That quick. That quick, I forget. Between 1 and 2, and fold between 3 and 4. There we go. Let's try that again. This is going to go here. We're going to Make sure it stays. And I'm actually going to line this edge up right here with the gray, because I definitely want to make sure that I have a seam allowance. I'm actually going to stitch it instead of pin it because it's so tight and so small. So I'm going to make myself between 1 and 2 a nice little seam allowance. That's not a rotary cutter. This is a rotary cutter. All right, let's find piece 2 is CF. That would be coffee. And we're going to see which way it goes. It goes this way, just like this. We're going to lay it on here and sew it on here. I know that that's the right size. I'm just going to go ahead and roll it back. I don't need to trim away any seam allowance there. This is just a little piece. All right, and then we're going to fold between 2 and 3. Come on, pull that out. We're going to create a seam allowance. And we're going to put our last piece, which is R. R is bone. I'm going to see which way I cut that. Did I cut it this way? Probably not. This way? This way? That way. That's the way I cut it. So this is the side I want. I'm going to grab that with my fingers, flip it over to the back side, line it up. I'm going to fold it over and make sure that it's covering right there. That's where it's going to lay. So I'm going to grab my little tiny piece. It's all lined up. I won't have to trim the seam allowance on that one because it lines up just right. See, it lined up just right. And I'm going to fold it back and see that it covered the whole thing, and it did. Just hold it up to the light. And that was a quickie. So that was D3B. That one is done. So we're just going to set that aside. We're moving right along today. All right, let's move these pieces. Let's fold on our lines. Look at that, I remembered. All right. Oh, goodness, there's so many lines on this one. It's so small, too. But we're going to come across that, and if you're doing any other pattern from Legit Kits, just know, or any paper piecing at all, just know that there's going to be a lot of little pieces on little pieces. All right, we'll fold right here. And is there one more? There is right here. Okay, all of our lines are now folded. Let's find Z, which is piece 1, and it's white. That would be this right here. And we're going to lay this on the light and make sure it is where I want it. And I actually 100% am loving the idea of stitching these in place. I was doing this in week 6 too. I'm gonna put a stitch there. That's where I want it. I'm gonna put a stitch here. It literally takes 2 seconds. I don't want to mess with the pins. So now that I know it's where I want it, we're cheating here, but it's a good cheat. It's a good cheat. We're making it work. We're gonna line this up, cut away the excess. We're going to find AU, which is spot 2. Again, we're working with D3D. AU is gold, so that would be this one. And we're going to just say, oh, that's the way it's going to go. So this is the side I want to sew on. I'm going to hold it, flip it, and this is a pretty good cut here. So I'm going to line this up right there. It's laying just like I need it. I'm going to hold it in place and sew it on there between 1 and 2. All right. This is going to have a lot of bulk right here in this top corner on this piece too. This seam allowance is pretty perfect to me, so I'm just going to go ahead and roll this back. Okay, now we want between 2 and 3, so we're just going to pull away the paper, fold it on its line. Look at that, I cut that piece pretty darn good because I'm barely shaving off of it right here. And yes, I'm leaving my blade open. It's just easier because I'm throwing it out of my way, so I'm not going to cut myself with it. All right, T is the next one. So T is espresso. That would be this dark one right here. And I know that this is the side I want to sew on. And this is a very skinny piece, but we're going to lay it on here. It's going to cover everything we need. Right there and right there. Flip it back over. And sew it between 2 and 3. And there's a lot of lines right here, so figure out which one is the straight line that comes between 2 and 3. All right. And that, let's slightly need to trim that seam allowance before we roll it back ever so slightly. All right, let's roll it back. Probably be easier if I roll from this angle here. And it's picking up all the little crumbs. All right, now between 3 and 4 is P. Oy, this piece is even smaller. P is black. And right off the bat, it looks like it goes this way. Oh, let's fold and create a seam allowance first, though, because that's some bulk back here. We want to get rid of that. Okay. Let's make sure again that's the way it goes. I'm going to go ahead, and the slivers are getting smaller as we go. All right, I'm going to hold this little tiny guy in place. And again, I'm going to stitch between 3 and 4. Find that line. And I've realized that this is already really thick right there. All right, I'm not even going to trim that away. I'm just going to leave it. We're going to roll it. Just like that. And we're going to grab CF, which is coffee. That would be this little guy right here. And this is the edge I want to sew. But first, let's create a seam allowance between 4 and 5. Pull that paper away. Oh, that's really close. It's on there. I don't even think I'm cutting anything but that bulk up here away. All right. That's going to go here, so I'm just going to put it on this side. Just like this. Sewing very small. We're just going to hold it in place and stitch between 4 and 5. And I'm pretty sure you heard the thickness it was going through just now. Right there. There's a lot of bulk there. And that's a pretty good seam allowance. I'm leaving it. I'm just rolling over this really good because it's very thick right there. All right, now to sew between 2 and 6. So we're going to peel this all off of the paper. Find our line. We're going to get rid of this. And we're going to get LB for number 6 on page D3D. We need LB, which is, LB is leather. Is that this one? Yes, that's this one. It's going to go right here. This is the side I'm sewing on up here, so I'm just going to hold that, lay it up here, and then we're just going to bring it over here. And that's a pretty good straight cut right there, so we're just going to go ahead and sew it on. Make sure it covers it correctly, and it does. And I left this, the seam allowance is pretty straight, so that's just going to stay. And this little guy is so tight, I'm going to stitch him in the seam allowance up here too. Because he just does not want to stay down. All right. So that's good. Now, we're going to turn this. We want between 6 and 7. Let's pull this away. Make our line between 6 and 7. Make a seam allowance. And that's good. Now, number 7 is YW, and it looks like this is how I'm sewing it on. So we're going to go ahead, turn it right here. Just like this. Making sure that it covers it, and it will. Okay, here we go. Let's sew this guy on now. All right, let's roll it back. Is it covering correctly? It is. I don't want to trim that away. It looks good. It comes up where it's supposed to. Okay. I am going to cut this off right here, though. That's not needed. Plus, that's within the seam allowance right here. So it'll be a nice straight cut along this. All right, so D3D is done. Let's grab the next one. This was page 45. Just going to throw our fabrics to the side. Wait, wait, wait. Let's fold. So we're going to fold it first. I'm doing that on purpose, guys. I'm purposely trying to remember. All right. And turn it this way. And fold right here. Okay, so this has 4 pieces. Space 1, so page 45 or D3C. YW is first. YW is, I'm looking. I don't know what color YW is. Can't see it there. Y. None of those start with a Y. Why don't I see YW? Did I not cut a YW? There's 4 pieces here. AG, and then FD, YW. Aha, Yarrow. That's this one right here. Here's my YW. And I think it goes this way, right here. So let's lay it on the light. Make sure right there. There, 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 and there. I'm going to go ahead and stitch it as a pin. That's my pin now, is stitching. Aha, look at that. I'm going to fold on my line, and we're going to cut. You guys like my new way of not pinning? I hate pinning. Pinning is my worst enemy. I poked myself last week a few times with the pins. Obviously, it was in fast forward and you couldn't see, but... All right, so 1 to 2. 2 is FD, which is bleach white. So that is going this way. So this long straight edge is going on this long straight edge right here. And we're going to fold it back and make sure that it covers it, and it does. All right, so let's sew FD, or 1 to 2. Let's hold it. It's a long one. All right. I don't need to trim that seam allowance. I just need to roll it back because my seam allowance was a nice straight line to start with. All right. Now between 2 and 3, let's fold it and trim it. And then we're going to grab a G, which is champagne. That would be this one. And I have a almost straight edge right here. That's the way it's going to go. We're going to fold it over, lay it on here. Perfect. Sew it. And if you haven't noticed already, it's like I'm a professional now. I'm a professional paper piecer. Not really, but you know, we could always dream. But you should be a professional by now too, just like me. All right, here we go. We're going to fold it back. Oh, no, 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 no. We have to rip. It didn't go to the bottom of the page, so I'll show you on the light. See? It needed to go down here more, so this needs to be gone down some. So we're going to rip it and take it down a notch. I hate when I have to do this, but we have 2 straight lines now because we trimmed away that seam allowance, so this should be pretty easy. I'm just going to fold that paper out of the way and run my seam ripper along here. Very carefully, like. Without ripping my fabric. Come on, fresh cut. There we go. I'm trying not to stretch it either because it is on the bias. These little tiny stitches are harder to rip out than bigger stitches. All right. We don't want to have to use that seam ripper again, so let's put it away. I'm going to swipe away the threads out of that seam, just like this. And we're going to slide, oops, let's get these guys out of that right here too. They're so tiny. All these tiny little stitches. Okay, let's slide it down a notch. Fold it back. That's perfect right there. Okay, that's where it needs to go. I still have a nice straight edge because we cut it there. Now we can sew on that line again. Let's see now. Now it covers it, both sides. Yay! That's what we want. Sometimes I talk about being a professional, and look, I'm ripping. There goes my professionalism. All right. Let's go to number 4. Let's rip this out right there. Fold on number 4, and I got a big chunk I'm cutting out of here, but that's okay. If I really need that piece, I will dig through my scrap bin and pull it out. All right, last but not least on this page, which is D3C, is T. T is espresso. Espresso goes this way, and well, espresso is cut very wonky. Let's make espresso a nice straight line by using this wonderful cutter. All right, that's better. Let's make sure it's going to cover it all the way, and it does. Let's put it on here, just like this. All right, let's turn it over this way and sew between 1 and 4. I'm also going to stitch a G right here while I'm at it to hold it down. All right, let's see. I don't need to cut seam allowance. Let's make sure it covers it. Oh, and it does perfectly. All right, here we go. There, I got my professionalism back. My professional paper piecing. All right, so page 45 or D3C is all sewn. And I stitched down these little flaps. All right, for the next couple, I'm just going to go ahead and put you in time lapse while I finish these. So we all know what that next step is. Press them all with a hot, dry iron, and then we're just going to trim them on the outside of this gray line. Outside of the gray line, all the way around. Okay, that's what we're doing. I'll spare you that and put it in time lapse. Everything's cut. It's time to file. So I'm going to assume we're in the C's. D, that's a D. We're going to put that with D. D, 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 and D, and D. All right. So all those are all going in this next section. Look at that. They're all going right in here. How simple was that? Okay, some of them I'll have to turn. There we go. There we go. And one of them is folded. We don't want that. All right. It's all cleaned up. There we have it. Skulliver is in there. So So it's done. I'm glad I chose 6 pages today because it got it done. It feels like it went faster. The less colors I think I'm choosing, the faster it goes. So even though they were smaller pieces, but you never know what next week is going to bring, because next week, video 8, there could be 100 colors. Oh, you never know. Anyways, Skulliver is filed away. Oops, I almost dropped that. It's filed away, and we're ready to move on to the next video. So don't forget, breathe, because you got this. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.